Thank you. All right, I will call to order this meeting of the Erie County Board of Elections for Thursday, September 9th, 2021. And Mr. Smith, if you could do a roll call.
Mr. Anderson, Mr. Rastetter, Mrs.
Here.
Showerman.
Here.
Chairwoman Rennie.
Here. Thank you. And we will move on to the hearing of the public. I don't believe there was anyone signed up to speak ahead of time. Nicole, am I correct in that? I don't have anybody listed ahead of time for speaking.
That's correct.
All right, then we will open the floor for people who may wish to speak. And I see Mr. Wirtz has his hand raised.
Thank you, Chairwoman.
And I want to speak. State your name and municipality.
Jim Wirtz, City of Erie. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I know time is of the essence, so I'll get right to it. I would ask the Board of Elections to consider under other D on the agenda a motion to cover the cost of postage on the return mail ballots, as had been done in the general election of 2020. It was not done in the primary of 2021, but given the rise in COVID cases, not only in Erie County, but across the Commonwealth, for the increased safety and to ease the financial burden on voters who may not be able to carry the cost of postage, certainly we offer them assistance to get to the drop box or to help deliver that. But the county, with its COVID funds, did carry that cost last November, and I ask respectfully that the election board consider doing so again for this November's election. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public who wishes to be heard? Anyone else from the public who wishes to be heard? And finally, anyone else from the public who wishes to speak at this time? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to the next item on the agenda, the approval of minutes of the previous meeting.
So moved.
Second.
I could have a second, thank you. It's been properly moved and seconded. If we could have a roll call on the vote for the approval of those minutes.
Mr. Rastetter?
Yes.
Mrs. Showerman?
Yes.
Chairwoman Rennie?
Yes. All right, we will move to number 5 on the agenda, the election report. And we have it broken down into 4 categories. The first is the motion to certify. And I'm asking Mr. Smith to provide a short introduction, which will open the floor then for discussion before each of these items under the election report.
Thank you, Madam
Report on.
So there are ballots in your packet for your review. We're looking at again, a 2-sided ballot. We believe it'll be a 14-inch length, which is a little bit shorter than it was in the primary, which we believe will help, should reduce the time for scanning at polling places. There is a retention ballot, retention questions rather, on this ballot, in keeping with the practices of other counties and with somewhat silent approval on this matter anyway by the state. We put the retention that the statute says on its own ballot, but that of course was written when we had a straight party vote still. And so you couldn't vote straight party and vote for a retention question, especially in an electronic format. So the language is a little bit out of date, but to that point, we do have it in its own column on the back with instructions and with the wording substantially provided by the state of Pennsylvania. Tanya and her team, as well as Deputy Clerk Inon, has been double checking the spelling and everything else all along. We believe we're in a good position. The programming went very well from Dominion, and we believe we'll be ready to begin sending ballots out very shortly. And I'm available for questions.
All right, with that being said, I'm going to open the floor before we have a motion for a vote on this. Is there anyone on the election board who would like to ask questions or make comments? Councilwoman Showerman.
I just wanted to, I don't really have any questions. I just wanted to say that as far as I could see it, I didn't see any mistakes on it. Nicole did a good job.
I agree. Councilman Rastetter, did you have any observations or any questions about the ballot?
Well, mine hasn't opened yet.
Okay.
So I'm still waiting to see it. I hope that's what's behind this curtain.
Okay, we'll give you a moment to get that opened.
Doug.
Hey, I'm not the ghost in the machine, man.
Yeah, I don't know. It's crawling along.
Okay. Well,
I'm sure it might take up a lot of megabytes, so it's probably just requiring a little more time.
Actually, while
we're
waiting,
putting a lot of extra things on that.
And while we're waiting, and this is out of order, but I shuffled it in with my papers. I would like to recognize that we did have an email from Ms. Freda Tepfer. And if you'll indulge me, I would like to make sure that this is read into the record under public comments, which is actually a little bit out of order here. But she couldn't be here. And she wanted to say that the Erie County Elections Office is very helpful. However, I think it would be appropriate for them to establish an online presence with social media, since so many people in Erie communicate and get information that way. I suggest a link to an easy way to confirm a person's polling location, as well as to confirm registration status. Also, I understand you will be moving the polling place for 6-2. The new location is very close to the old one. Please ensure that communication with voters also includes people who are blind and visually impaired. When directing pedestrians, particularly those who are blind and visually impaired, please ensure that they can enter from the street rather than having to navigate across a parking lot. As a note, it is important when communicating electronically with people who are blind and visually impaired to be aware that information in a picture or JPEG file is not accessible to those who use screen readers. You can provide the text directly on the page or use alt text. Thank you for continuing to ensure that all voters have equal access to the polling place and voting process. And I want to thank Freda for her participation and contribution. And that concludes her statement. Getting back to the order at hand, Mr. Rastetter, were you able to open your file?
Yeah, it just popped up and I'm looking through it. Go ahead with your question.
Okay. I have had a chance to download the ballot, and I actually printed it off and looked through it pretty closely. I don't have any questions. It looks like it's accurate, and I don't see any problems with it. So I believe I am agreeing with Councilwoman Showerman on that. And unless Mr. Rastetter has any concerns, I will ask for a motion to certify 2021 general election ballot.
No, it all looks good to me. It is awfully long for a ballot.
It is.
Yeah. Okay, you have my approval.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Can I have a motion to certify then?
So moved.
Second.
So moved. Okay.
Okay. Did I hear you say second, Scott?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. All right. I missed that. Okay. It has been moved and seconded. It has been moved and seconded to certify the 2021 Erie County, Pennsylvania general election ballot. If there is no further discussion, could we have a roll call vote on that, Mr. Smith?
Mrs. Showerman?
Yes.
Mr. Rastetter?
Yes.
Chairwoman Rennie?
Yes. Thank you. And with that completed, we can move on to resolution number 2. Mr. Smith, if you can give us a little introduction for that.
Yes. So for that, for those of you that have your packet in front of you, on page 38 of your agenda, there's an exhibit showing the proposal. Currently, our judges of election earn $155, and then they receive a $20 stipend, I guess, for lack of a better word, for the return of their ballots. That was something that the legislature created under Act 77. So in essence, they receive $175. In most cases, it's the judge that brings back the ballots. The current rate for all other positions is $130. I did some comparison with some other counties, and I found us to be somewhat on the lower side, in the middle for some, but somewhat lower. But I do believe the job has gotten harder, not only the judge position, but the other positions, in the sense that we do have new voting technology, albeit paper ballots as its base. Those who have been with us for some time have had to learn a new system. Frankly, it's chased away a number of others. We've had turnover of about 2/3 in the last 2 years. So it's been significant. And as of a couple of weeks ago, we had around 12 judge positions that were vacant. We've since filled some of them. Abby Williams conducted a class last week for about 6 judges that we were able to get through a meeting with the Republican committee, and I'm glad Mr. Wirtz is on the line. Perhaps there's some interest within his committee for people that may wish to help in this respect. But we're, of course, reaching out to Gannon. We did reach out to Erie Insurance even, but did not hear back on that score. But so one of the reasons I felt that we needed to make a change in pay was to help our attraction, to help our retention. As we all know, employers are having a difficult time finding people to work. And, you know, we're no different in that respect. But we do have a rather challenging position that people do twice a year. They kind of have to relearn it each time. And so what I'm proposing for a board consideration is a staggered amount. It's not a great difference, but it does in effect give people that have more voters more pay. So there is in fact only one precinct in Erie County, Elgin, that has 150 or less. I not off the top of my head don't know what their number is. It may be about 130. So for someone in that position, it would be a $30 raise from 155 to 185. Other positions on their board would be 155. So that's a $25 raise. So I'm proposing a $25 raise for all positions except for judges, and then the judge would be in scale. $30 for the smallest precincts, $35 for 150 to 500, that's 11 precincts, $40 for 19 precincts that are 501 to 751 voters, and $45 for 118 precincts with 751 and above. All of those, of course, include the $20 ballot stipend. We have around 23 roaming poll workers. They're also on this chart. They were earning 135, and I'm proposing they go up to 165. They have to do a lot of driving, and so we're trying to be cognizant of their costs for driving and working sometimes from morning until evening if problems continue to bubble up in different areas of the county. The other aspect of the pay proposal is a change in mileage. They don't receive a huge amount of money for mileage, and I'm speaking of judges here only. The city of Erie, for instance, was getting $5. So we've bumped that up to $8. We've looked to change the mileage by approximately 60% across the board. So when you get to a place like Elgin, for instance, the proposal would be $24, and they were being paid something like $17 previously. So it's a two-pronged situation, extra mileage for the judges, and also somewhere between a $30 and $45 raise, depending on the number of voters they have. This proposal is for 2022 because judges and inspectors are finishing their terms as we speak. Those end at December 31 of 21. So the cost involved would be around $675 for mileage per election. So we're talking about an additional $13.50 for the year. Pay raises for judges would increase costs from $26.75 to $33,820. Pay raises for other poll workers would increase costs from $91,000 to $108,500. Roamers go from $3,105 to $3,795. In total, our costs for poll workers' mileage would increase from what we, at least this would be based on the spring, $121,305 to $155,505, an increase of $34,200 per election, $68,400 per year. The last time pay was changed was in 2017. At that time, it was a $25 raise. Prior to that, the previous raise was 2005. So they have not happened very often. My belief is that going up to this rate, I believe we could stay at it for at least 4 to 8 years. And I believe it would help us keep who we have and help us attract perhaps some people to run as write-in candidates in the fall. We have a lot of judges of election and inspector positions that do not have names on the ballot. That happens in part because people don't want to go to the trouble of circulating petitions. But I believe there is a key aspect there, and that is that the position is harder. People see the political environment these days, and for some, it's off-putting. But I think more than that is just really that the job has changed. And for some, it's changed a little too much, and they just aren't prepared to do some of the extra things that are required with paper. You know, like it or not, electronic voting had a great simplicity to it. And now that we're handling documents, paper ballots that have to be transported, that have to be accounted for 100%, there's a lot more time invested on election day in handling that end of the operation. So that's my proposal for the board. Certainly, if the board wasn't ready to vote today, I believe this could be approved anytime before the end of the year. But if it were approved today, it might help us attract some people to try to run as write-in candidates on November 2nd. With that, I'm open for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Questions or comments from the board? Councilwoman Showerman.
Well, I'm ready to vote on it today, and it looks like you've done put a lot of time and effort into this and researching it. And I thank you for bringing us up to par with the other counties in Pennsylvania. And as a person who was judge of elections for about 20 years or so, I understand how hard it is to get people to work and to recruit people to be on the team that you need at each polling place. And I believe this will help not only recruit people, but retain people, as Doug said. And hopefully it will make a difference, because we have to have people there to run the elections smoothly. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Good.
Okay, I just want to say that just anecdotally, my conversations with some of the other judges of elections and poll workers corroborates and supports what Mr. Smith said. There's a great deal of stress with the positions now for a whole variety of reasons, most of which you stated. And I think that this may be at least a partial remedy in attracting people and in keeping them. So I too am ready to vote on it today. And if there are no other questions, I will entertain a motion for the resolution.
So moved.
And I'll second it.
Thank you. Roll call, Mr. Smith.
On election board resolution number 2 of 2021, Mrs. Showerman,
Yes.
Mr. Rastetter,
Yes.
Chairwoman Rennie.
Yes. Thank you. And with that, we can move on to item C whenever you're ready, Mr. Smith. Again, just an introduction would be appreciated. Thank you.
We're hoping the board will entertain the change in polling place for Erie's 6th Ward, 2nd District. We were notified by St. Joseph's Community Center. Father Larry is the pastor at St. Joe's, and I'm sure it was COVID related, but they decided after many years that they could no longer house voting there. They had been very good to us through the years and very generous that way. Fortunately, we were able to find a location very close, St. John's Evangelical Lutheran at 2216 Peach Street. They have adequate parking, ADA accessible entrance, and we believe space that will provide ample room for voting for 6-2 voters.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board?
Is that the one that Freda called in about?
Yes, Mr. Rastetter, that was the one. And to her point, I could say that not only will we mail notification cards as we always do, but I'm in contact with Michelle Jaggi, who is the information officer for the county, and we will work on messaging this change, if it's approved, via social media. I think it's a good suggestion.
Well, it's a very tight-knit little neighborhood down there. I don't think that should be a big problem. St. John's is very well known and accessible. Thank you.
All right. If there are no other questions, I will entertain a motion for approving the polling location change.
So moved.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Mr. Smith, would you conduct a roll call vote on the motion for the polling location change?
Mr. Rastetter?
Yes.
Mrs. Showerman?
Yes.
Chairwoman Rennie?
Yes. Thank you. And with those items, I think I'll work for Mr. Smith for any other items that he may have, updates and so forth.
I just want to inform the board that the week of September 20th, we'll be conducting machine testing at the voter warehouse and here in the voter registration office. The process will begin in the voter registration office and then move over to the warehouse. In that process, every single ballot in the county is run through one of the scanners, and there is it's a mock election, for lack of a better description. And there's a pattern that is employed for every pre-lat election. That is, candidate 1 gets 1 vote, candidate 2 gets 2 votes, and so on down the ballot. And then, so by having that pattern, the program knows in advance what the numbers should be at the end. And so we do the scanning of ballots, and then the zip drives within the scanners are then removed, and they are taken over to the office where the votes are tallied. And then the tallies are compared with what should be based on the program logistics. And this is something that we do before every single election. It's required by the Pennsylvania Election Code. Board members are certainly welcome to participate or even just review the proceedings. We will be putting out notices to the public, to the parties, for anyone who desires to view the process. It is open. The week of October 4th, we begin poll worker training at the Erie County Convention Center. We have 2 rooms there. One will be used for the classroom side of judges of election and inspectors. The other side focuses on the operation of the machines. So we've got Abby Williams doing the judge and inspector side, and Jim Cherpak doing the machine side. All participants spend time in both classrooms. There is a $20 training fee, which we believe is current with most places in the state. In fact, it's on the high end. Excuse me. So, you know, we do our best to incentivize not only being on the team on election day, but also receiving the training, the update for some. I mean, we certainly have judges who are experienced and are in little need of refresher, but that's not the rule. That is, generally speaking, most everybody needs some sort of refresher, and we do get changes in law and so forth occasionally. So that's what we have coming up. I can't think of anything else at the moment. We are proceeding well, I think. We're working on bags, have been working on election supply bags all summer. I'm contracting with William Penn Printing to print a new set of postings for us. Those are the postings that poll workers put up on the walls and make available to voters that deal with voter rights, with basic instructions, with basic things like being able to vote without being harassed and those sorts of basic human freedoms that we enjoy here. And with that, I'm open for questions.
All right. Any questions from the board for Mr. Smith?
Yeah,
seeing none. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, I just wondered how many languages they're printing that in.
Currently, Mr. Rastetter, we're only providing ballots in English. Mrs. Fernandez is looking into the possibility of some Spanish ballots down the line. That would be probably the most prevalent second language. That would be, you know, a matter for the board certainly to officially vote on. But currently just English.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Smith, for your report. I do want to recognize the request from Mr. Wirtz for possible payment for the postage or the county picking up the cost of the postage. It is something that we do have some numbers on, and we do get charged on what is returned through the mail. It is something we did pick up the cost in the county for the postage last year, as you know. The postage on the business reply is 58 cents. If we have 25,000 returned envelopes, that would amount to 14,500. While it is not something that we budgeted for this year, I believe it is something that we will take under advisement and possibly bring into the discussion on the budget for 2022. I did not bring forward any resolution to take on that cost for the general election. So I'm not ready to entertain such a motion today. However, if any of the other board members have an interest in this, this is something that could be done between now and before the general election. If it is something that that another member of the board wishes to do. We did take a look at what is being done in other counties. Some are picking up the cost of the postage. I believe most are presently not, to my knowledge. So at this point, if there are any comments or observations from the board, I'm open to them. As I said, this is something that could be brought forward before the general election. All right. Councilwoman Showerman.
At this point in time, I'm not inclined to do that. I don't think one stamp twice a year is asking too much from our voters. Some of them that choose not to vote by mail and don't have much money, we don't reimburse them for gas, and a stamp is a lot cheaper than what it costs to drive there and back home. So I'm not inclined to bring that forward. Thank you.
Let me raise my hand.
Thanks. Mr. Rastetter?
I'm looking for it here. But anyhow, since I got your attention, I think we actually did that in the beginning to kind of promote the idea of voting by mail, or at least eliminate some of the objections to voting by mail. I don't know if we should even think about voting on that right now. Leave it to the full board. That's all I can say about that. Thank you. I think Mary's not hearing.
Well, as I said, no, my connection is unstable. I can hear you. Can you hear me? Okay.
Once in a while.
Sorry, it's my connection keeps cutting out slightly. So, Councilwoman Showerman.
I just saw Jim's note about COVID and decreasing the numbers at the polls, but the majority of people are all vaccinated and willing to wear masks. And we're going to be talking in the near future about boosters, and that'll be coming up probably before the next election, which should decrease the chances of getting COVID even more. So that's all.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me? I think my connection.
I hear you.
I can hear you too, Mary.
Can you? Okay, thank you. All right. With that, since it's not on the agenda, it's not being brought forward, I thought it deserved to be recognized at least. I do want to recognize former election board member Ann Villela, who stepped in due to the fact that several council members were running for office. And I want to recognize the service that she gave to the county at a particularly difficult time. It's a politically sensitive time, and there were various controversial issues that had come up. And I just want to recognize the job that she did in stepping forward to serve with true, being civic minded and with true engagement. So again, thank you to Ann Villela for serving earlier this year on the election board. That concludes the agenda, except for any other questions and comments. Is there anything else for the good of the order? Councilwoman Showerman?
I was just wondering, when you're talking about Ann, if that's something that maybe we should do a citation for, just for her stepping in and helping out when we needed her.
I had been thinking the same thing, honestly, and I think I will bring that forward for the next council meeting. Thank you. Appreciate that. Anything else for the good of the order? If nothing, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you. This meeting of the election board is adjourned.
All right. See everybody in a short period of time.
See you shortly.